I wanted to take you inside of the comp class curriculum, give you a little bit of a tour, show you exactly what's included, and also give you some idea about how you can start incorporating it into your academy. So this is the site. I'll show you how to get to the curriculum and find it. Anytime you come up here, there's two ways you can log in. You can use this login button here, or you can jump up and go to the login over here. I'll take you to a login screen. I'm already logged in. To find the course, a couple of options. We can click on this courses button and then we scroll down. Any of the courses that you own will be in green. You can click on either of those to go from it. Or if you click on home, there is a courses section, and if you're an instructor, there's an instructor section. You can click on the corresponding thing. This is the comp class curriculum. Okay, so this is an 8-week program that is split into 24 different lessons. Okay, the first thing that you'll see is this video. This is just a simple introduction to the comp class curriculum. It'll give you a little bit of background on how we created it, but also how you can start to implement it in your academy as well. And then we have the actual kind of lesson plans, the kind of lesson breakdowns. Before we get into that, actually, this is the most important thing that you need to access. This is the comp class curriculum ebook. It's something Chelsea wrote, and it's around about 200 pages long, and it contains everything in the comp class curriculum. So it's got lesson plans, class breakdowns, information about the classroom learning that we have, just tons and tons of stuff. In fact, I want to take a look inside that right now and give you a little bit of an idea about it. So this is the ebook. All of the pages, all the different sections are hyperlinked. So, you know, if we want to go down to, well, let's just start at the beginning, we'll work our way through, but I'm going to jump to the introduction. That's the introduction, so you can jump straight to that. And this gives you a little bit of information about the course, how you can adjust the program, what these stars mean, you know, they're like the essential important drills, and just some more advice about like running a comp class curriculum. And then we have like a little bit about the actual week as well. So every week starts with introduction, like the key core concepts of the week. And then we go through classroom learning. The classroom learning sections are really, really cool. This is where you start talking about like, not just the techniques, but more about what happens around jiu-jitsu. So we talk about energy systems, we're talking about some sports psychology stuff, so things like your controllables, points as well, like ideas to help your students be as prepared as possible, like weight cutting is another example, food intake, all of those things, ideas that are around competition that are really important that aren't necessarily technique. And these are included within your classes. So, you know, you can be talking about, for example, if you see people, you know, flagging during like sparring or during the training, or they're going too slowly, it's like, okay, you need to come back in, and like if you see everybody like kind of hunched over and down, it's like that's not the body language that you want to present. You know, we want to make sure that we're upright, we're ready to go, we're always first coming back in. Those kind of ideas. That's our classroom learning. We'll talk about it again when we come to the videos in a second. And so again, so there's tons and tons of information. And then you come to like the schedule. Okay, so this is like an overview of a class. Classes are like 60 to 90 minutes, depending on what you want to do and how much you want to you're trained to go. How much you want to train. And then we have like a more specific lesson plan, which goes into more depth, talks a little bit about like common mistakes of like the techniques. So you'll see within our class schedule, you know, we have the different areas, and then we have like the drills here. This is what's in the lesson plan. Okay, so it gives you an idea about, you know, how to structure your class and how to structure your lesson, okay? And then you go through it, and we've got all the other stuff. The other thing that you'll find included in here is, let me zoom down and find one. This is incredibly exciting to watch, I'm sure. Yeah, these flow charts. So flow charts are really useful tools that can kind of help your students visualize what they need to do. This is a closed guard specific one. So you have two parts. You're obviously on the top, on the bottom, but then in competition terms is like, how long do you have left? Is it a minute? Is it longer than a minute? And you kind of work your way through the system, and you have to make choices based on what's going on in the match, the position you're in, and then how hard you need to work. So for example, if we follow one of these paths, you know, we're on the bottom, is there a minute left? No, there's more than a minute. Are you winning? No, then look to sweep. Or, you know, is there a minute left? Yes. Are you winning? No. You need to fight and open up, and it gives you the advice, the next step that you can start talking about in your class as well. Okay, because that's really, really crucial. And then what we do is we also this flow chart relates to the training that we have. So you can see that we have like, not in that one, we'll do things like super fights. So the super fights, we'll talk about this more specifically in the videos, but you know, it's starting in close guard, and you set up a scenario where you're, you know, let's say the person on top, you're down by 2 points and you have to win and you only have a minute to do it. That's essentially the layout for a super fight. And it might be you have someone who's better on top and worse on the bottom, or vice versa, but it starts to show people how they need to be working to get out of a position. Because, or the opposite way around, like, okay, you're on bottom, you're down by 2 and you're in close guard. How are you going to get out and win, essentially? Because the likelihood that you're going to submit someone in the last minute is quite low if you've not done it already, you know. So you need to start to understand strategy about how to build your guard so that you can sweep effectively and create scrambles and create movement to get up on top, which is something you always see in jiu-jitsu competition. Okay, so that's the ebook. Back into these lessons. Now, each one of these lessons, I'm going to click on one of these, is specific to one of the classes within the ebook as well. And you can see, like, these are the 8 different sections. These are all like, they're kind of like a competition broken down into different parts. So the hierarchy is the first one. That's all about like how you progress from, you know, neutral positions all the way into the most advantageous positions to either score or you know, submit your partner. Then we have guard aggression. Guard aggression is very early on in the syllabus because guard is a lot less intuitive than, say, passing. Passing is pretty simple. Get past the legs and squash them. Guard is like, okay, we need to do all of these different things, keeping our knees back, maintaining strong grips. A lot more to it, a lot conceptually, a lot harder. So you want to give people the longest period of time to work on those areas. And that's why you'll see the next couple are still kind of guard based as well. So we've got half guard, which comes next, one of the most common positions you'll find in a match. And we need to know what to do on the bottom and on the top, which is all included. Close guard, the most dominant guard that we have. Then we have guard passing. So like, you know, how do we start breaking apart opponent's guard? Then we have the 2 start of the fight sections, so takedowns and guard pulling. And then we have back attacks, which is essentially the most dominant position you'll see in jiu-jitsu. Okay, each one of these 8 sections is broken down into 3 days. If you have, like for us, for example, we have 4 comp classes a week, it's easy for us to do these lesson plans. If you only have 1, then you just do like day A. If you only have 2, then you do day A, day B. If you have 3 or more, then you can do day A, B, and C. Okay, and again, you'll see through the lessons, the key drills, the key techniques are highlighted. So if we take a look inside of one of these, every video is structured in the same way. We start with an introduction. The introduction is very small. We're not going to go into great depth about like anything because that's included within the ebook. And it's just to kind of introduce. So this one's all about, what are we doing? Guard aggression, I think. This one's all about guard aggression. Like, you've got to be aggressive like guard, essentially. Then we have our classroom learning section, which is where we talk about the concepts that are covered in the books. So it might be some controllable systems. It might be, you know, ideas or like conceptual ideas about how we pass guard. And these are kind of dotted through the training in the class. Okay, so they'll be used within the technical description of what you're trying to do and then how it relates back to a match. Then we have our warm-up. Warm-up is always specific to the class. So, you know, in this section, if we're going to be doing a lot of guard work, the warm-up is going to be specific to that. So what are the areas that we need to walk? How can we get our mind set up? Often it will be things like, you know, letting the guys focus on, you know, like, okay, you've got to pull guard and sweep back and forth for a couple of minutes. You do a few rounds, trying to make it as real as possible. That's where they can work their own kind of game. Then we have like, you know, specific drills, isolated drills that are designed to work at an area of jiu-jitsu competition. Then we have our sparring section, and then we have our cardio section. Okay, and these are important. And then below some of the videos, we're going to add more of these as we go, but below some of the videos, you'll find like a sample class. So this is essentially the same class, but in a real setting. This is, you know, our class that we taught on this subject. So you can see, you know, what exactly we do, how we teach it, how we introduce the different elements, you know, how we coach our students, how we try to motivate them, you know, when we add in the classroom learning, all of that kind of stuff is going to be covered in there as well. Okay, so that's to give you like a more real idea about what we're doing. Okay, cool thing about these, so below here, you can jump to the specific sections of the video. So you just literally that bump to the warm-up section. This one is slightly different, but it's the same idea. Like, you know, I jump to the sparring section, for example, or you've got this chapter list where you can jump to the sparring section. Nice thing about both of these, if you navigate away from the page and you come back, the video remembers where you are in the video, and you'll come straight back to it. And then you've got the video download section as well. What we're also going to introduce, I think, is we're going to add the lesson plans, the specific lesson plans. So we'll rip them out of the ebook and we'll add them below in this section too. The reason for that is it's just a little bit easier to find. Plus, if you're passing this off to someone, you can, rather than handing them the entire ebook, which can be quite daunting, you can just hand them the specific lesson plan and you can go from there. Okay, so that's something we'll be adding in the near future as well, because I think it's going to be beneficial to people. Okay, so yeah, the idea kind of behind the curriculum and why we've structured it in this 8 weeks is essentially we want to like treat it a bit like a fight camp. So whether you have like an established program or you've got a brand new one, a great idea when you're starting this kind of curriculum is to pick a competition which is in about 8 or 9 weeks time, and you have everybody working towards that same goal. That way you can run through the curriculum, you can get an idea for the feel of it, everybody's going to be progressing at the same rate, and plus you've also instilled that structure, the class structure, into the class as well. Okay, so that's why we've done it as an 8 weeks. So you can just start at the beginning, work your way through and go from there. We actually pretty much cycle these. We do spend now, because our guys are competing all the time, we do spend more. Sometimes we'll spend longer on a specific section. So for example, recently we just spent a couple of weeks on guard passing. Like, it was very specific. We expanded it out. You know, we made sure they were getting the concept. That's a choice that you can make. Like, we have kind of times built into the curriculum. You know, so for example, I know in a lot of the day C's, which are more like review-based days, it's like, okay, pick the drills that your students were most struggling with. That's what you're going to work in this class. Okay. A few other things, we have the sparring methods. So this is all the different sparring methods that we use in our classes. So it gives you a little bit of variety that you can change, because very rarely do we just set a clock and say, okay, grab a partner, you're going to roll for 10 minutes. That sometimes happens, but often we work other areas. So we do shorter rounds, we do longer rounds, we do rounds with specific goals, because that makes more sense. Like, we need to work different energy systems. We need to make sure that we're also getting like that longer energy system, the cardio work done. We want to make sure that people are, you know, trying their best, like developing that competitive attitude within our training, and that's done through our sparring. Okay, so we need to work all those different things. The other resource that we've added in is the positional hierarchy. The positional hierarchy is everybody knows kind of the basic point structure in jiu-jitsu, or you hear about it quite regularly, like, okay, first we're going to do a takedown, then we're going to pass guard, we're going to go to mount, and we're going to take the back. That's kind of a positional hierarchy. But it doesn't really translate very well into jiu-jitsu, because there's lots of little subsections within that as well. Yeah, sure, you're going to go from, you know, being in guard to passing guard, but, you know, what if you're on close guard? What about if you're in half guard? These are different guards to work with, and you need to understand what you need to be doing in each of those situations to progress to the next level. So the positional hierarchy we use is actually, I think it's 9 different sections, if I remember correctly. But it allows people it gives people like kind of a blueprint of wherever they're at. So if they're on the bottom, what's the next section they need to get to? If they're on top, what do they need to be doing to progress as well? So if you're ever in like a really weird guard, you know, reverse Della X worm or something like that. I don't know if that exists, but you've never seen it before, you don't know what to do. The positional hierarchy gives you a structure that you can kind of start problem solving on the fly. Okay, what are the things? Okay, first thing I've got to do, I've got to get off these feet. These are horrendous feet, and so on and so forth. And it's been instrumental in helping our students understand where to go and taking a lot of the confusion out of jiu-jitsu. So that's why we included it, in case you guys don't have it or don't have something like that. We also discuss it within this hierarchy section as well. And then we've also included like a bonus. It's just basically inside one of our comp classes. You can go take a look at it, similar to the ones that we have up on some of the lessons. But it's just us talking about what we're doing, why we're trying to do stuff, so you get a real feel for what we're like. Okay, and that's the comp class. That's the comp class curriculum. It is essentially it's in terms of creating it, I've been competing since 2000 consistently since 2005, 2006. I did some MMA, some kickboxing. Before that, from like 2002 onwards. So a really long time. Chelsea's the same. And we've been in like the highest level training rooms, Atos, AOJ. I spent so much time with Braulio when he was training for ADCC camps or Worlds camps. Same with like high level MMA guys as well. And we've taken that knowledge and we've tried to distill it into a comp class curriculum. And this is what we use in our academy on a regular basis. It's what we started using. We've tested it for a couple of years. We're continually going in and we made tons of adjustments, and this is what we came out of. Okay, so it's a huge amount of energy and work to create this, but it's really going to help a lot of people that haven't necessarily been in those high-level training rooms get an idea about what it's like and how to structure your training. Because one of the things that we always see from people when they do comp classes, like, okay, I talked about it earlier, but we're going to set a clock and we're just going to do 10-minute rounds. We're going to do 5 10-minute rounds. That's kind of weird because, okay, you do definitely need to do that, but can you imagine like a football team, for example, or soccer if you're not in the UK or you're in the US, a soccer team being like, okay, all we're going to do this week for training is going to play 90-minute games. That's not really a great way to train. It doesn't make any sense because you need to work more specific areas. You need kind of those set pieces that you're working. You want to work on specific things that happen within a match. That's how you get better. The same for any sport. Like very few sports do you just do the sport to get better at the sport. No, you don't. You find your sticking areas, you find the common problems, and then you rep them out and you create drills, you create situations where you can practice those individual things that are going to make the difference in a match. So for example, in jiu-jitsu, it might be that point where, you've just hit a sweep, but you've not actually managed to come up on top. Okay, if you've never trained that, or you've only ever maybe do it occasionally in sparring, like how often do sweeps happen in sparring against a similar level person? Very rarely. But you need to practice that area because it's crucial. Like what you do in those moments, the decisions you make can really dictate the rest of a fight. You could get up by 2 points or you could end up having your guard passed. And you need to make those correct decisions about, what it is. Like, when do I keep progressing forwards? When do I realize that it's no longer good to go forwards and come backwards? And by taking out those smaller sections, it allows you to focus on those specific areas. It can be less impactful on your body, which means you can train longer, and you can start developing the competitiveness within your academy in a very small, condensed, refined way. Okay, so that was a bit of a waffle, but that's essentially what we're trying to do in the comp class. Okay, we want to create not just sparring. That's great, but it's not really what we need for competition. We need a more in-depth way of looking at it and a better way to train our students. Every affiliate that we've given this to, the people that have had access to it in the past have benefited from it, and they've gone on to create very, very successful competition teams. So I'm really excited for you to get it. If you have any specific questions, please let me know and I'll do my best to answer them.